Hey everybody. It's been a while since I've done this. I like to every now and again just talk. Um, so I thought I would process some things that are on my mind today. I'm not allowed to work today or tomorrow. So rather than just be bored to tears, I figured I would talk a little bit, share some stuff. I've been processing this year, like, at the end of every year you kind of just, at least I do, process the year that I've had, and I've been saying for the last couple of months that 2024 has easily been the best year of my life, without question. It honestly hasn't even been close. This has been just an absolutely amazing year. I've been doing a lot of traveling. I've been pulling back on how much work I do, believe it or not. I know it probably feels to many people like I'm always working, but I actually have pulled back some from work in order to have a little fun. And so I'm really enjoying myself. This has been a really cool year. I have had a lot of victories this year, and I'm very thankful for it. But it occurred to me after yesterday that in 2024 I also had two extraordinarily scary incidents, and it occurs to me that in both of those incidents I really got a strong reminder of how important my role as a father is to me. And so I thought I would process that out loud here. So I'll tell a couple stories. If you like the stories, if you're into stories, get ready, because I'm about to put you on your butt. The first one especially. So the first one, I'll tell you about these two incidents. The first one was in Mexico. I took the family to Mexico for my first real kind of international trip. I've been to like Canada, but I feel like that doesn't count. And I went to Cuba, but I was on the naval base, Guantanamo Bay, so it felt like being in America. So this trip to Mexico was a big deal for me, big deal for my family. It's first time my son, first time my daughter left the country, first time we as a family went anywhere like that together, like anywhere big like that together. And it was just a very big deal. There was a dream of mine to take my family out of the country and travel internationally. And we did it, and it was really cool. But while we were there, we had the most ridiculous fluke incident that you could imagine. I'll paint the picture. Here we are. So we're at a restaurant. It was like a buffet style kind of restaurant, big wide open space. And so my wife and the kids were off getting their food. I was kind of back where the tables are. And I heard like a blood curdling scream. And if you're a parent, you understand what this feels like, because you hear a kid screaming. If you're at the park, if you're at the mall, if you're anywhere where your kids are, and you hear a scream, your natural instinct is that my child? So I'm far enough away from where my wife and children are that I can't see them, but I hear this scream, and I'm like, man, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like that's Ella. So I just started kind of like walking over toward that way. I'm trying not to freak out, but I'm walking, and I'm walking a little fast. I'm quick stepping it a little bit. And as I turn this corner so that I can see down this little pathway and I can see where the scream is coming from, I can see my wife. And then I see and hear her screaming at the top of her lungs. And I'm like looking, but now I'm running. And I'm looking, and I see like that I can see the body of a child, but I cannot see Ella's face. I'm like, what is going on? Why can't I make up? Where's Ella's face? Where's Ella? And I realized that right in front of my wife is Ella, but you can't see her face because there's something on her face. And as I get closer and closer, now this is all right. This is one of those things that it feels like it's in slow motion, but we're talking like 4 seconds, right? But I'm processing. I can see that Ella's there, right there with my wife, and that my wife is screaming, and I can hear Ella is screaming, but I can't see her face. And then it occurs to me, I realize as I'm making it out, that the reason I can't see Ella's face is there's an animal on her face, literally, right? I'm getting it, right? Try to get to my family. And as I get closer, I realize there is a hawk that has landed on her face, and his claws are in her face, okay? Now, this was not a wild hawk. We're in a restaurant, so there's a hawk that was like, I don't know, one of those hawk trainer type situations where someone's got a big leather glove and there's a hawk, and right, like a, I don't know, circus act sort of thing. And this hawk, for whatever reason, decided he needed to go land on my child's face. And so I'm running up. My child is screaming, my wife is screaming. Everybody's standing around. And I can see the trainer dude just standing there. Maybe like, I don't know, 15 feet away or something. So I'm processing this as I'm running, and I'm sprinting toward my child, because that's what you do when you're a parent. Like, I got to go save my child. But I'm processing, like I'm running up there like, okay, but what's the plan, right? What am I planning to do? Because, now I'll pause for a second, because this is literally the thought that I'm processing. And some of it happened in the moment, but some of it I processed afterwards. But what I was recognizing in that moment was, I'm an avid outdoorsman, right? I do lots of things outdoors. I used to fish a lot. I love to hike and bike and just be outside all the time. And if I'm outside in the woods and I ran up on a hawk, I would back away, right? I would literally be afraid to mess with the hawk, because I don't want that smoke, right? It's a hawk. They kill what they eat, right? I go to the grocery store for my food. So I'm thinking to myself as I'm running up to my child, what am I gonna do? Because it's still a hawk, right? It can fly. It has, I don't know, talons or whatever you call those things. But as I get close enough to be within arm's reach, this feeling comes over me, like, it's whatever. There's no pause. There's no slow down. I'm speeding up. And I grabbed this hawk and I threw him, right? And the hawk is like, just takes the L and is on the ground and like, whatever. And I'm tending, like I'm looking at this hawk. Then I immediately look back for my child, and sure enough, she's scratched up in the whole bit. And then there's this moment where I realize, wait, I let the hawk go. The hawk I don't know what the problem was, right? I don't know if this hawk has beef with Ella, like Ella may have looked at him funny. You make eye contact with the wrong animal, now you're in a battle with that animal. I don't have any idea why this situation happened. All I know is my child was screaming. There was a hawk that was literally attached to my child's face. And when I pulled the hawk off of Ella, I had to pull with force. That's all I knew. I don't know if he was trying to eat her, take her away, or use her afro as his nest. I have no idea. But what I thought about in that moment was, what if it's not over? What if this hawk wants more? And like in that moment, what came over me was absolute rage. Like in that moment, I suddenly became the Hulk. No joke. I was like, I will smash everything. Everyone, whatever comes my way, you'll get it. And I'm standing there. So there's a moment where there's the hawk, and there's me, and then there's Ella and my wife. So I'm the only thing in between this hawk and my child. And I remember thinking to myself, I will kill you if you, this is to the hawk, I will stomp you out if you attempt to get up. Like, because the hawk is on the ground. Like, it's, clearly bewildered and hurt because I tossed him, right? And he doesn't appear to be able to get back up. So I then was able to kind of turn my attention and calm down and like pay attention to my family. But there was a split second where I was completely comfortable killing anything and anyone that approached. And I knew it. I was like, I don't care if it's the hawk trainer, I don't care if it's a passerby, if this hawk got a grizzly bear friend, bring him. I don't care. You'll get it. And so after the fact, I was processing. This is one of those things you hear about, mama bear, papa bear type moments, right? This was a real papa bear moment, where I recognized that in that moment, if it was a Mack truck fighting my child, I still would have just jumped in. If it was a grizzly bear, if it was a big dude, if it was, I really don't think in that moment there would have been anything that would have made me back down. If it was a grizzly bear, I would have taken that L, and I understand that, right? I'm not delusional. I'm not saying I would beat up a grizzly bear or a Mack truck, but what I'm saying is I would not have hesitated. And it really put into perspective for me how important to me that role is of dad. Like, if there's an L to be taken, it's going to be me. It ain't going to be Ella that takes it. It's going to be me, right? It's not going to be my wife. It's not going to be my son. I'm getting in front of it. If the Mack truck is driving at you and it's got to take somebody out, it's going to take me out. And that's my job. That's what it felt like. I got it. Whatever it is, I got it. And it occurred to me that in that moment, all of my other values went out the window, right? Because the reason I don't fish anymore is it feels cruel to me, right? I used to be a bass fisherman, and bass fishing is catch and release. So you're out in a stream catching smallmouth for the fun of the fight, and you don't eat them. You just put them back. It's catch and release for me it was. And over the years, my thoughts have evolved, and I realized I'm just not into that, like toying with an animal for no reason. That just doesn't feel cool to me. I'll go fishing with Ella and we'll catch bluegill and we'll bring them home and eat them. If you're feeding your family when you're out hunting or fishing, God bless America. Like, do you? And no, do you anyway. But I'm saying my point is I no longer even want to hurt animals, in that way. That's just not my bag anymore. But in the name of my child, I'll kill a little. I don't care. It doesn't matter. If somebody got to die and it's a choice between my child and some animal that I love, that animal that I love is about to get snuffed out. And I was just really taken aback by that, about how quickly, how instantly every other thought I had was just wiped away when it was time to step into the fire for my child. That was just a really, really powerful moment. And it really made me process this whole dad thing. And then yesterday there was another one. So I was at Kung Fu 2 days ago, and I had this moment where I got dizzy and lightheaded and my heart was beating out of my chest to the point where it was like, I'm afraid this could be a heart attack. I didn't think I was having a heart attack, but it was like, well, you can't really play with your heart. So I ended up going to the hospital and they ran tests on me and they saw an abnormality. And so they kept me overnight. And for the most part, the doctors were saying, oh, you look very healthy. You look great. Did a stress test. passed with flying colors, blah, 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 all the stuff. Everything looked good, except that they could see something was going on. Something happened. And so eventually the cardiologist was called in and looked at my stuff and said, all right, we got to go in. So they were like prepping me. I'm sitting around. I was thinking I was going home. I stayed overnight so that they could have the cardiologist look at me. But then everyone was basically like, you're good. Like, don't worry. And then the cardiologist was like, no, I'm going in there. And so I didn't have a whole lot of time to process what that even meant. And I also feel like there's a little bit of an autism thing in there too, because like it occurred to me when they said, I'm going in, I didn't really process what that meant. They were saying, the doctor is saying, I'm gonna go in there and look around at your heart. And, we're going to do a catheterization and we're going to look around and see if you have any blockages and blah, blah, blah. And so I was actually completely focused on the whole, I was like, I'm fairly certain they're probably going to use a needle for this. And I don't like needles. I'm afraid of needles. There's more than one nurse out there in the world that's like, nah, he didn't let me put a needle in him. That's not a strange thing for me. Like, matter of fact, it happened while I was at the hospital. They wanted to give me a shot of something and the nurse literally was like, never mind, because that's how bad I am with needles. So I'm processing, oh shoot, I'm about to get stuck with a needle. And we're in this like prep area before the procedure. And the doctor is now like explaining what's about to happen. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. And she's explaining, and shout out to the doctor. I wish I could remember her name because she was good. And it was an all-woman team. The entire team in the procedure. I don't want to call it an operation, I guess, because they didn't end up like doing an operation on my heart. But the whole team was women, and that was oddly comforting. So, but that's a digression. So this doctor is processing with me, telling me what's about to happen. And then she really quickly, like very matter-of-factly, and almost as if to say, don't worry about these things. She says, there are three ways this can go. One, we go in there, we see nothing, we're done in 15 minutes. Cool. Two, we go in there and we see that you have arteries that are blocked, and we put in a stent. And the stent, and they're explaining what a stent is. But now, when I'm hearing this, I'm like, hold on a minute. I've heard about that before. I've heard about blocked arteries before. Like, I know plenty of people who have had those. This feels scary now. Like, this ain't a joke anymore. This ain't funny. And then she's like, and three, the possibility exists if we see too much blockage or we can't get the stent to work, we literally we could do bypass surgery on the spot right here, right now. Because if we're there and we're in and we find it, we're going to deal, whatever it is that we see, we're going to deal with it when we get in there. So theoretically, you could have bypass surgery in the next 20 minutes. And they're like, and she's like, and the extremes of those things, extremely rare scenario, blah, 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 you die, right? And so now in this moment, they're like prepping and they're like getting ready to do the thing, getting my, they're going to give me something and like knock me out. So they're just about their business. And I became absolutely overwhelmed with emotion. And what was interesting to me in that moment was there was only one thought in my head. In that moment, my wife is standing beside me. My mom is standing beside me. And I'm not thinking of either of them. The only thing I could think of is my kids. That is the only thought that was in my head. Like, I'm not going to say I didn't care about my wife or the possibility. Because mind you, they're telling me what they see. The thing that they see in my heart is something about my widowmaker. And the fact that it's called a widowmaker is pretty scary. So my wife is processing that, right? But me, what I'm processing in that moment is my kids. That's the only thing I can think of. And so I immediately sent a text message to the two older kids that have phones and just told them I love them. Because I'm like, there's a theoretical possibility I don't come out of this thing. And they're telling me that's a very remote chance, but it's still a chance. And I'm not ready, right? I haven't said goodbye. There's a lot of stuff I ain't get done yet. And so the thing that I was processing in that moment was, my job as a dad is not over, right? I need more time. And not only that, I can't say goodbye. I can't not say goodbye to my kids. That's not going to work for me. I'm right now, I'm even getting emotional just thinking about it. That's what I was thinking in that moment. And thankfully, literally, 20 minutes later, the procedure was over. They went in, they saw no blockages. They saw nothing that made them feel like they needed to do anything else. They got out of there. They were happy. All is well. Well, I mean, maybe not all is well, because something happened, so we don't know what it is, and we've got to do the work to figure out what happened. But in that moment, there was a relief when I woke up, when I realized, okay, I'm not gone, right? I didn't go to the other side. But it really hit home for me in that moment. Wow. Once again, I'm realizing how big of a deal to me this whole role of dad is, because that is the only thing that I thought of in that moment. I thought about my kids, and it really just reminds me that the first thing I ever wanted to be in my life was a dad, and the most important thing for me is being a dad that is present, right? Because my dad died when I was 7. And so I lived my life with a void, right? And my promise to myself was that I would not allow my children to experience that void. Not if I could help it, right? But then in this moment, realizing there are lots of things you can't help, right? Because, I'm a pretty healthy dude. I exercise pretty regularly. I do all this. Maybe I don't eat as well as my doctors would want me to, but for the most part, they were looking at me at the hospital saying, it's crazy. If you have a heart issue, there's something seriously going on here, because you're the picture of health. I heard that multiple times over the last 2 days. And so it occurred to me that there are things outside of your control. You could get struck by lightning, you could get attacked by a hawk, whatever could happen. And the thing that made me realize is, wow, that is the worst thing that could ever happen to me, would be me leaving my children. And so, it just really made me think, and I've been processing for the last, however many hours it's been since I got home. Just really how big of a deal, how important that whole thing is for me, this idea of being a dad. It really is everything in my life. When I'm laying there and they're telling me that theoretically I could die in the next hour, I wasn't thinking about oh shoot, I wish I made more money. I wasn't thinking about my house or my job. My desk is right there piled up with work. I wasn't thinking about, oh shoot, I got to get all that work done. You could have all that work. You could have all my money. You could have my house, my car. None of that matters to me. But my kids, that's the thing I couldn't bear leaving. And so, that's the thought. There's no answer. There's no grand meaning to this. I'm just processing exactly how important this is to me, being a dad, right? And that's something I've always known. But this year in particular, I've had 2 very, very strong reminders of how important it is. I've had 2 very, very powerful Papa Bear type moments. So I wonder, for you all maybe watching, share in the comments if you've ever had any Mama Bear or Papa Bear moments, because I feel like every mom, every dad has that within them. the good ones anyway. And so maybe share yours in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. But that's all I got. I'm just thinking about how important my children are to me. So kids, if one day you ever get bored and you start watching your dad's YouTube channel, I love you. But everybody else, go hug your kids. That was a profound feeling, thinking like, there's a possibility you never see your kids again. That took me out.